Hey guys, Cam for 15 back out with another video for you guys and back with another Alya hides her feelings in Russian episode review for you guys. Apologies for getting this video out late. One, work. Two, the new college football game came out and I was playing that a lot. So that's why the Alya episode review didn't come out on Wednesday night because I wanted to get home and play some college football after work, which is a very fun game if you're into sports games. Anyways, all your hides your feelings in Russian. It was a good episode, but then I'm also sad because now we got the versus trope again. We got the childhood friend. We got now a girl that I could see people liking if they give her more screen time, and you see more bonds, connecting in terms of Masachika and said girl, which is Alya's sister, Masha. And I did not see. Now, when I first watched the episode, I didn't pick up on it at first, and then I started watching other people's reviews, and then I ended up picking up on it, and I realized, I'm like, oh, oh, oh. So, yeah, it's not gonna be good for somebody. Somebody, again, it ain't gonna be good. The only bummer about this episode is we didn't see Yuki. We need more Yuki in this series. I love Alya. I like Masha. Um, we need more Yuki. Give me more Yuki. Hopefully, Yuki is in episode 4, so then we can see more of her. But regardless, we end up getting some backstory about Alya in terms of how she met Masachika, and it actually makes their bond a lot stronger, and it actually makes it like, okay, it makes it, and you get the understanding, like, okay, this is the reason why Alya likes Masachika. So essentially, after the events from last week's episode 2, what is it? Alya comes home. Her sister is actually there, and her sister's name is Masha, and essentially she's the older sister to Alya. And essentially, Masha picks up the fact that Alya looks quite happy, and Alya's like, "Oh, I'm not happy." And then she brings up the fact, like, "Oh, is it because of a boy or something like that?" And essentially, what happens is Alya essentially tells Masha, her sister, about the reasonings about that. Okay, you know, her experience back in junior high with this one boy with Masachika, and essentially with the fact that they've known each other for a long time. They're quote unquote, she goes on and to tell him, like, we're not anything more than that. We're friends. Because Masha's like, what, do you like this guy? Are you guys like dating or something? And she's like, no, we're just friends. I'm like, yeah, you're just friends, but the way you want him to be more than just friends is absolutely funny, to say the least. But Masha kind of eggs at her sister, and it's like, oh, well, come on, if you like somebody, well, you might as well just come out and say you like them. And she talks about the whole romance story. So then we kind of get the backstory of Alya and kind of where she gets an understanding from. So in the episode, she mentions that she's lived in Japan at some point. Then she ended up moving to Russia. Yeah, moving to Russia. That's how she was able to learn Russian. And then she ended up coming back to Japan. Now, when she was in Russia, and actually, I want to make something clear. Like, I guess people are like being so damn nitpicky for this anime, when it comes to like the Russian, type of like language that is being used. I think people are saying, like, listen, the type of Russian they're using, it's not correct to what she's saying. And personally, I don't really care. Like, whatever, it is what it is. People like to freaking hyper analyze and hypercritical every single little detail. Like, okay, word for word, she has to be exactly saying the same exact thing that the words mean in Russian. Obviously, you look at the geographical difference between Japan and Russia, it's pretty quite far. And also too, it's like, who knows? Now I wonder if they do an English dub of this show, if they'll actually get like a Russian actor that knows how to do Russian or speak Russian, if they'll put that in there, or they'll just use the same, type of subtitled language they used in the sub version. It would actually be unique, but personally, if you ask me, I think people are being hypercritical and hyper analyzing things because, okay, whatever, who cares? And you can maybe also chalk up the fact that she's still a novice in terms of learning Russian. She only was like in Russia for like 5 years. It's long, but it's also short. You know, 5 years is just half a decade. So maybe there's things that she just didn't pick up on. She's not just good enough. And plus, like I said, she came to Russia from Japan, so she's more fluent in Japanese than she is in Russian. So of course, there's some things she'd probably say wrong, but whatever. People like to be hypercritical and hyperanalyze every single minute detail, and if it isn't exactly to the book, people will say it's terrible. I know people were bringing this whole thing up for like a week or something, like saying like she ain't saying this, but it doesn't matter because regardless, even if she's not saying the right thing, the subtitles are just right then and there. So yeah. Anyways, we find out like she did that, and when she was in Russia, we kind of get this whole idea about her, how she's always so perfect about every little thing and how she wants to strive to be the best, and if she has to do it by herself, she'll do it by herself because she was doing this group project, but kind of her group members were somewhat messing around and not really taking it seriously. And in her eyes, she really wants to do really well because I think there's like some sort of recognition they would get out of this, and she wants her classmates to have enough time to focus, but her classmates are like, listen, you're focusing on this way too much, it isn't that big of a deal essentially, but to Alya it is a big deal. And it really hurts her feelings, and that's when she basically does the whole thing solo, and she doesn't really get what she wants to get, and in a weird way it kind of creates distance between her and her classmates in Russia. And this kind of instilled this ideology in her, like, okay, I need to be the perfect student. If no, I don't like people that are lazy or that are not willing to do the work and put the time in and do the work and everything. So guess what? I'm just gonna be my own main solo person and do my own single thing. So then we get a fast forward where it cuts back to when she moves back to Japan and she's in junior high and she's meeting new other students and everything. And she's kind of keeping to herself. She's kind of a loner, really. And then that's when she ends up meeting Masachika. Masachika introduces himself as like, hey, and everything. But, she starts to observe him throughout the days they're in school, and the fact that, like, okay, we know she don't like lazy guys, and she sees like, okay, the guy is like lazy, because at first when she first met him, she was like, okay, maybe this guy's actually decent, maybe he actually is pretty serious and everything about school. And then the more she sees him, she's like, yeah, he is nothing, he's just a lazy guy. He's just a lazy guy that what is just doing things to get by and barely doing much of anything to half-ass himself to get to where he needs to get to, right? So in the meantime, the school festival comes up, and the thing is, she's trying to put all her time and effort and work into the school festival, but at the same time, she's also exhausting herself. Doing so to the point you kind of have it to where Masachika gets involved because he sees this, and he ends up saying like, hey, maybe you should just like not relax, or maybe you should just like chillax and everything, let the other classmates help. And obviously Alya, because of the scarring from her early years in Russia, she's like, no, I got to do this all by myself, even, I got to make sure this is perfect. But Masachika's like, listen, I got some people to freaking do this. I pulled some strings, like, but you don't have to do this alone. Like, we're your classmates. Like, you can rely on the classmates because everybody at the end of the day wants, the school festival to be a success, and, through it, she understands that. And, the school festival success, they kind of have a nice little moment, where they're talking. Alya tells Masachika like how she's the way she is, And I like the way Masachika kind of responded. Again, like I said earlier, like he's telling like you can always depend on people. You don't always have to, you know, always rely on yourself because it's just gonna make things a lot harder for you. You might as well rely on your classmates because even though some of us may not be the best, at the end of the day, we all have bright ideas. We all want to have fun and enjoy everything that we create because that's the best part. So that leads into a funny scene where you have all these guys that are basically trying to ask Alya to dance with them, and they basically pressurize her. And then you have this great moment where Masachika just takes her hand and he starts running with her, and he's like, "Sorry, boys, she's taken." And I guess we find out like, okay, like the reason why he had the other guys help out with this whole thing is because he promised them like, oh, well, if you do this, you potentially dance with Alya, essentially. But he ends up taking her hand. He starts dance. He's like, sorry, boy, she's taken because she's gonna be my dance partner. And then you kind of have it where Alya's inner monologuing within herself, and she's like, okay, yeah. I don't know what's going on inside my chest, but I feel weird, my heart's kind of like going crazy a bit. And it's like, okay, now we see what happened and why Alya likes Masachika, and why she hides her feelings in Russian, um, around him because that's the only way she can do to hide her feelings. But we find out, okay, that's how she really likes him. We don't. It sucks that we don't get to see the dance scene. I wish there was a dancing scene. Maybe they add. I don't know if in the manga or the original source material they showed the flashback and they showed them dancing together. But I wish we could have saw the dance. It would have been a nice, cute moment between the two. But you get that backstory to see like, okay, you see why Alya likes Masachika. Masachika probably also likes Alya as well. But you get the backstory of like, okay, this is how these two characters got to know each other. These two characters, how they've basically been friends since junior high, and how they have such a close-knit bond. And even later on, you can also see why Alya sometimes, she's trying to be recognized, but it's clear like she wants, Masachika to recognize her and like her back. And she's trying to get his attention all the time, but at the same time, I do like the fact like even in the first few episodes, she sees that like lazy self of him. She's like, brother, why did I even fall for this guy? But I can't hate. I really like him, but I can't. That typical thing. But then when you cut back to the present, the mom's just like, oh, that's so cute. That's your typical romance story. So it then leads into the next day where Masha ends up actually meeting Masachika because Masachika has to fill in for Yuki. And then you have it to where Masha meets Masachika and she's like, "Oh, you're the guy that my sister met," and thing like that. And then, or actually no, she doesn't say that, but she grabs his hand and she's very entrenched in him and everything. And then eventually, I think it's the student president that says like, "Oh yeah, this is Masachika," and everything. And then what is it? She ends up having a moment to where she's like, oh, because in the scene with her sister, she pulls out like this pendant where she has this guy, which it doesn't show this guy, but she ends up realizing this ends up being the revelation of the fact of, well, it's especially later on in the fact at the end of the episode, Masachika makes the mention when she's patting his head, like, this kind of feels like nice and feels awfully familiar and everything. But we end up the big turn and the big twist of this episode really is the fact that we find out that if you remember in episode 1, I said that I thought that was Alya. When Alya was teaching him Russian, and maybe Masachika for some odd reason forgot who Alya was because in that picture the hair was different and maybe she just dyed her hair white or silver, and obviously he doesn't remember her because of that. So that's the thing. And then remember, Alya is also her nickname. Also, I forgot to mention, he also said in the flashback, Masachika's like, oh yeah, can you do something for me? Because they made like some sort of weird deal or whatever. It's kind of like a get back, and he's like, hey, let me call you by your nickname, Alya. And she's like, wait, why do you want to do that? And he's like, well, because I'm gonna be the only one to ever call you that. which I think that's very fun. I actually think that's very cute and adorable. That in a weird way, he's calling her by her nickname, and it is really the only name that people really only call her by, and he's the only person that's allowed to do it. So it's like you guys are essentially like a couple now. But anyways, regardless, as I was saying, we get the revelation that that was not Alya in that flashback back in episode 1 teaching Masachika Russian. That was actually Alya's older sister, Masha, apparently that was Masha, and everything, and she realizes this, and she's like, and she lets go of his hand in the scene, because she realizes, oh shit, this is the guy that my sister likes, but at the same time, this is the guy that I like too. And then it's like, oh, you kind of get the child now. It's like, shit, they were childhood friends. Alya, in a weird way, has also been Masachika's childhood friends. And now this man is gonna probably have to pick a sister. And it's just like, oh, great. One sister's gonna be very happy, while the other sister's gonna be very sad that they won't get the guy. So they kind of end up going out on a little date or whatever, and you get this, see, like the stuffed animal they call, like, where Masha's like, oh, this stuffed animal looks like Alya and everything. And I think she's also trying to do this because she's trying to see, like, okay, does this dude like him back, or like my sister back and everything? But at the end of the day, it's just a crazy revelation. And he makes the mention at the end, because we kind of get a little bit of a flashback with Masachika, and we kind of get some development on him. We find out, like, his parents ended up splitting up, and he was very, like, upset about that and very broken by that, because he was like a child essentially. And then his sister Yuki seemed like she was like very ill, and a bunch of crazy stuff in his backstory. And for a kid at his age, you know parents divorcing can be heartbreaking, because it's like, okay, you grow up with your parents for maybe a while, a long time, and then the fact that you see them like, okay, yeah, we're getting a divorce and we're gonna be going our own separate ways, and the fact, like, one kid stay with one parent and the other kid stay with another parent, you can kind of see, like, the dude was actually pretty heartbroken by that, and he was actually disturbed, and he was bothered by that, and that was some trauma that affected him. And you kind of, in a weird way, kind of, he remembers that, and he still does kind of have that trauma still deep in him. Especially the fact, like, not only you split apart from your parents, and you're only with one family member, you also split apart with your sister. And even though it's like, because in the second episode, they made a mention when Yuki was just chilling, he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, I can't be here, I'm your brother, or I'm your sister, so I have every right to be here. So, now that fills in the gaps of what she meant by that in episode 2, because it's like, wait, wouldn't they be living together? It seems like they must live in separate households, and everything. So, clearly that's why he was kind of like, what are you doing here in episode 2? But he probably really cared about his sister. And again, it looked like Yuki was pretty ill, and he probably wanted to be there for her, while she was probably very sick. And that probably broke him, that he wasn't by her side for maybe a certain amount of years and things like that. So it's crazy. And you could just have that moment where Masha embraces him, and that's when he's like, it feels familiar, and this feels like from a familiar touch and everything. So yeah, really solid episode of Alya hides her feelings in Russian. In Russian. It's gonna be interesting to see where the story's gonna go from here. Yeah, I don't like these storylines where I don't like these romance storylines where it's like, okay, there's multiple girls clearly in one series, and the main character more than likely has to pick one on who he wants to be with. And usually, with how these romance animes go, the childhood friend characters are always like the ones that lose in these animes, because it's like, oh, even though they're the childhood friend that fell in love with the main male character because of an experience they had in their past, when they were child, and they've just been together so long to the point that the childhood friend's like, I like you more than just being a friend. And then usually it's always the new girl, the main female character, that's who the main character chooses. I don't know. Japan does this childhood friend trope. It's kind of crazy, man. Can we get one anime where actually the childhood friend actually wins for once? Like, legitimately. I would actually be cool of, like, okay, you play it off like, okay, this is the main female character, but clearly this is the childhood friend, and you finally have it to where the childhood friend actually wins. There's so many animes I've watched in terms of romance animes where you think the childhood friend has every right to potentially win, and then they end up losing because, okay, yeah, they're not the main girl, they're not the main character. I don't know what's up with Japan. Japan is like, they like to torture us Americans in terms of like childhood friends, because usually out here in America, if it's a not childhood friend, but if you've been a friend of somebody so close to the point like you just end up starting to date them, 9 out of 10 times, usually sometimes childhood friends end up becoming more than just childhood friends, and they end up becoming husband and wife eventually. That's more the American way, or the American thing that happens here in America. Usually two people, main guy, main girl, who've been childhood friends all their lives and things like that. Usually they end up hooking up. Japan, they're the complete opposite. They're like, yeah, it's like that meme. It's like that one meme where you have the one guy where he's just like holding, even though he's holding the one girl's hand, he's looking at this other girl and he's like, ooh, I like her. It's kind of like that meme where the meme is the guy is the main character, the childhood friend is the one girl's looking at him all disgusted, like, come on, man. And then, the girl that the dude is looking at in the meme is the main female character. So it's absolutely funny. But it sucks, man, that we're going through this thing again. And I do like Masha. Maybe they'll do more in the coming episodes to make me like her more, which eventually, when you have it to where Masachika ends up choosing Alya, more than likely, it's gonna make that moment for Masha even a lot more heartbreaking. So yeah, man. We'll see. We will see. But anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. If you guys liked the video, leave a like, put in the comment section your thoughts, hit the subscribe button if you want to get more Alya Hides Her Feelings of Russian content or any other anime content I upload to the channel. So then, guys, stay safe out there and have a great rest of your day, night, or when you're this video. Till then, guys, peace.